Hello everyone, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series against XTRG. XTRG playing, of course, as the Japanese forces, and yours truly is playing as the Allies. It is March 10th of 1942. The Japanese offensives are still underway in the Dutch East Indies. They've landed at... They've landed at Palembang, but they haven't taken that critical oil facility yet, and they just had a Japanese submarine fire torpedoes at a U.S. submarine, which was on the surface, charging its diesels, presumably. And the peak of irony, the Japanese submarine launched torpedoes at an American sub, but the Japanese got the duds. Hit but no explosion. Although I do feel like if a sub got hit by a torpedo, like straight on, it might puncture the hull anyway and could still cripple or sink it potentially. Like, that's a big, heavy hunk of steel just cruising up on you at a decent speed. XZ52, thanks for the bits. Hey, look, it's Tortuga. Now he thinks he's God. Okay, well, that's weird. Something's retreating something because of something. I'm always torn on these recon reports because sometimes it's like I wish I would slow down the preferences so that what it's telling me up there all stays on the screen longer. But then on the flip side, there's so many recon reports that the turn would take so long to run through. Japanese fighters sweeping over Java, with a handful of bombers hitting our forces there. More Japanese bombers coming into Singapore, 8 Ki-30 ANs, one of them destroyed by flak, two of them destroyed by flak. Two Japanese bomber, well, it only says one in the post-bomber phase, but it claims two bombers hit by flak and destroyed during the battle. That's nice. 30 Nates flying cover for them. 3 Tojos. We wiped out half of his R&D or prototype Tojos. So he only has a handful left until he can start mass producing those, which I think is still a little ways away. Although probably not too far. Something just sank. We just heard the gurgling of a sunken ship and people crying. Not sure what, but something did. I'm not wearing ladies' underpants, Tortuga. Stop laying... You know, I'm going to sue you for libel. I'm going to go after Tortuga Power's YouTube channel. I'm going to take him for every dime he's worth. Sean Mack, trap for cap where? Oh, just generally speaking? Yeah. So one thing worth mentioning is XTRG... Oh no! The Indomitus sank! The troop transport that I think was unloading troops at Norfolk Island and was hit by Japanese torpedo bombers was limping back to New Zealand to try and get to safety, but she foundered, I guess. And here's a Japanese deliberate attack against Singapore. So you can see the Japanese are bringing... I think they've brought more units in. At least it looks like it. I think this is more... There's more land units listed here. I don't see any new divisions, though. His infantry regiments have recovered some of their assault value. The Imperial Guards Division is still pretty wrecked, only about 77 AV. The 48th Division, 424. The 21st Division, 401. I think he has the 18th Division 334 and the 5th Division 459 assault value. All those divisions have very strong combat power. There were no troops on board Sean Mack, that troop transport. She was retreating after dropping her troops off, so there might have been a little bit of supply left, but there were no troops left. Meanwhile, we're in the bombardment phase of Singapore. So one thing I did want to bring up in this replay as we kind of wait to see how this this attack plays out is the XTRG and I did discuss offline between turns about the cap rules, or not the cap, but the altitude rules for fighters. So our previous rule said that all fighter aircraft can only fly at missions of an altitude 1 above their maximum maneuver capabilities. So for example, if a P-40 has 22 maneuver at 15,000 feet and its maneuver falls to 20 at 20,000 feet, I'm just making these numbers up by the way, then the maximum altitude you can fly the P-40 at is 20,000 feet, not 25, not 20, you know, within those altitude bands. We did that for a few reasons, but frankly, it's just easier to not have to worry about that. That rule does have some intention around, like, having more realistic altitude engagements, because otherwise the game does somewhat reward you for always putting your planes at maximum altitude so they can always dive on the enemy. So theoretically, you could see like a P-38 flying cap at 39,000 feet and then always diving, which I don't think very many P-38s were flying at 39,000 feet in combat air patrols. But there's trade-offs to that too, right? If you set your aircraft to maximum altitude, it has a massive increase on their fatigue, so you can usually only do it for a day or two before you have to rest them. So there's pluses and minuses, but it's just a little bit of a pain to try and have to, like, before you set your cap every single time, double-check what your aircraft's maneuver bands are. It actually also sort of indiscriminately favors the Allies, not in the early war period as much. The Japanese Zeros have a big advantage at that sort of medium altitudes with maneuver, but later war, it would give a big advantage to the Allies. And even middle war, it would give a big advantage to the Allies. The uncapped rule will help us with some aircraft, so it doesn't really help us with the P-40, the P-39s, anything like that, but it will help us with the P-38s when we get those in a couple of months, and it will help us with the Hurricane troops as well. I believe the Hurricanes out-altitude the Zero, so in theory we could always dive on the Zero with the Hurricanes. But again, there's the trade-off of fatigue. So let's go ahead and let's jump through this combat thing. This battle's taking a little bit longer, so I'll go ahead and hit the button to speed it up. Alright, so the Japanese reduced the fortifications to level 2 before the attack even, with their engineers. They attacked with 2,054 assault value. When factoring in the level 2 forts, their assault value dropped to 1187. The Allies had their assault value doubled by the forts to 1637, and we maintained a 1-2 Japanese assault odd on the Battle of Singapore. So that's good for us. The defenders had the advantage of terrain, leaders, but they had a penalty on experience, so it looks like we had good defensive terrain, which we know because it's an urban hex, but apparently we also had an edge in leadership of our units, which is somewhat surprising. The Japanese lost 4,500 men, 17 squads destroyed, 425 more disabled, 1 non-combatant destroyed, 64 disabled, 9 engineers destroyed, 142 disabled. That's a lot of engineers disabled. Only 1 gun destroyed, while 41 were disabled. 22 vehicles lost, 2 of those destroyed. The Allies lost more destroyed units, however, so only about half as many casualties, but 37 Allied infantry squads were destroyed, 151 disabled. 32 non-combatant squads destroyed, 76 disabled, 4 engineers destroyed, 26 disabled. We lost 39 guns, 12 of those destroyed, and 22 vehicles, 11 of those destroyed. So we actually lost a lot of supporting units, and we also lost a bunch of units destroyed, but I do wonder how many of those destroyed units were previously disabled and were just acting as bullet sponges. So we'll see. I mean, he's making progress at Singapore, but I will remind you guys that last time he attacked, which was 4 or 5 days ago, we had level 3 forts. He reduced them to level 2. Since his last attack, we built the forts back up to level 3, so he made progress, but he also only got back to where he was basically a week ago. So it's not really... He has not made a meaningful difference in the last week at Singapore. Yes, the casualties will mount. Yes, we will grow steadily weaker. But at the end of the day, this attack basically puts him back at where he was about a week ago. and he's late in taking Singapore in the first place. He should have taken it much earlier, but he hasn't. He's taken massive casualties in this campaign at Singapore. And so while he is slowly winning the Battle of Singapore, he is also tying these troops down, which would be much better used seizing the rest of the Dutch East Indies, moving into Burma. He's way behind schedule on all of that. He's a month behind the historical schedule. He's probably 2 months behind where a Japanese player could be if they were really aggressive and successful early. Okay, so Japanese delivered attack at Palembang, the largest oil producer on the map. He's going to win there eventually, but I don't think he sent enough troops, and he didn't. So he had a 1-2 assault odd attack. He did not reduce the forts, so the forts are still level 1. 1-2 attacks. We did lose 1 squad, destroyed 33 disabled. He lost 36 disabled. So that attack actually favored us, although the guns, we lost a couple. But he lost more men. He lost more men disabled, and he didn't reduce the fort there at all. So that was kind of a wasted attack from him. It'll add fatigue. It'll reduce our effective strength a little bit, but I think he's going to need to bring in... I think he'll either need to wait a couple turns to rest, or he'll need to bring in reinforcements to take the oil. Meanwhile, Japanese bombardment attack at Kaigan. We're still holding out in the south of the Philippines at Mindanao. Japanese lose 16 casualties. They inflict nothing on us, so a failed bombardment there. Japanese shock attack on near the eastern coast of China, near the Yellow Sea, against a headquarters unit, which somehow got itself isolated, like in the middle of nowhere, China. And it finally surrenders. It's been out there for quite a while. You can see here the Allies lost 94 casualties with that unit destroyed. They're all support units. We didn't even have any combat units. Japanese delivered attack at Kuching, which is also still continuing to hold out on the northern coast of Borneo, although he's only dispatched a single naval guard unit there. Another 1-2 assault odd attack here, so another good result for us. Fort level still 2. 1-2 Japanese odds, which give them 41 casualties, 5 disabled. We actually had more units disabled than he did, but nonetheless, we hold the base. We bombarded the 2nd Independent Mixed Brigade, which is this unit out here southeast of Sian. Looks like it has about 200 assault value. Our total strength is a little bit over 3 times, actually probably closer to 4, yeah, more than 4 times his assault strength. So that's an advantage for us. But we're in ×3 defensive terrain, so that makes me a little bit uneasy of attacking him. The bombardment didn't really do much damage, burned a little bit of supply, gave us some intelligence, though, so there's no way he has enough troops here right now to drive us back towards Xi'an, but there's also no way that he has, well, it would be a very bloody proposition to try and overrun him in a 3-1 hex when we only have 4-1 advantages, and the Japanese troops are a better quality. Japanese bombardment attack at Ambon. Still does nothing. Those troops are actually outnumber the attackers, but they don't have any supplies, so they're not going to be able to hold out for very long. Another Japanese deliberate attack at Port Blair. You can see the RM Viper Force, our commando paratroopers, which we had at Rangoon, made it into Port Blair and held the base. So the Japanese attacked with 600 men, 8 guns, 31 assault value. The defending force, 729 troops, 11 guns, 1 vehicle, 15 assault value. So outnumber 2-1 in assault value. However, it is like a 1-3 terrain or something like that, so we've got a big advantage on terrain. It's jungle terrain, which drops his attack value down to 5 and gives us an adjusted defensive value of 27, so we get 1-5 assault odds. He loses 51 men, nothing disabled, nothing destroyed, just disabled. We lose 1 squad disabled. I don't think we have enough troops there to overrun his force, but I also don't think there's any risk that Port Blair will fall without substantial Japanese reinforcements. So the Viper Force did what they needed to do. They arrived just in time to save Port Blair from the enemy, at least for the moment. Who are you trying to mute, Newhauser? We could bring in more troops, but I think the question is how many troops do we want to commit to Blair? Every unit we send into Blair is a unit pulled away from Burma. I think it's unlikely that without bringing in substantial reinforcements that he would be able to take Blair, even if he brings in more units of his SNLF force. And he's going to take heavy attrition if he keeps trying to supply at that range. We also have Buffaloes there flying cap. I think I saw some icon or indication that there was something going on over the base, but I can't remember. Okay, so first things first, let's check out Singapore. So Singapore's forts were reduced. You can see there's a little yellow icon, which means supplies are starting to get low. So if we click on Singapore, you can see here, well, they're not really getting low. They're just low because we've ordered a massive buildup of stockpile supplies in Singapore, but there's no more bases to pull that supply from. So in theory, if I drop it, we're still double the actual supplies required. We have just shy of 16,000 supplies there. Jim Windsor, thanks for the follow. We have 9,329 or 9,392 infantry still at Singapore, 309 vehicles, 562 guns, 46,298 second line support troops with an assault value of 737. So the assault value dropped by about 160. That's a pretty substantial drop for our force's assault value. We did lose several units, had some of their units destroyed. Some of their infantry units destroyed. I'm curious how much of that came out of like the 2nd Malaya Battalion or other units that were already all entirely combat ineffective versus how much of that came out of our combat effective units. The 9th Indian, 11th Indian Division still look reasonably strong. 277 assault value for the 9th Indian Division, which now is up to 50 experience. So that experience level is ticking up with this combat. 54 morale. The morale's not great. The 11th Indian Division, 69 morale, 50 experience. The 27th Australian Brigade still has 107 or 106 assault value. They have 60 experience and 71 morale, so they're slightly better troops. The 22nd Australian Brigade, meanwhile, is pretty battered. 46.7 of its 60 or so remaining infantry squads are disabled out of an ideal complement of 108. And you can see here 60 experience and 66 morale. Those are the 4 units that are really the core to our defense. We do have some elements left over of the SSVF Brigade, a Malaysian infantry brigade attached to the 3rd Indian Corps, which is 2/3 disabled. The morale is very low in that unit, and the 2nd Loyal Battalion of 16 assault value here. It's a British battalion of troops. That is 55 experience, 44 morale. So heavy attrition on this last turn, but we did hold the base. We did inflict heavier casualties on him than on us. I imagine he will not attack again this turn. And look at that. The fort building is already up to 32%. So if he doesn't bomb us with large numbers of bombers, we might actually be able to get this fort back up to level 3 before he attacks again, because I'm assuming he's going to give us a couple of days. We'll see. That might be optimistic. But a lot depends on how much he bombards and how much air power he brings against us. If we could get this fort level back to 3 again before he attacks again, that would be great. The Gloucester Battalion's the other unit I was considering sending into Blair. If we take a look here, it says he has 1,100 troops with 9 guns, so I don't know if that means he brought in more reserves after the attack. I don't think that's true. We have 13 assault value on the defense. The Port Blair Battalion has 5 militia squads. I think they had 4 last turn, so I think one of their disabled squads was refreshed. Meanwhile, the RM Viper Force has 8 combat Paris sections. It had 10 originally. One of them must have been destroyed. One's disabled. These are elite troops, 60 experience, 90 morale, and in this terrain, which is jungle terrain, they get a defensive bonus in jungle terrain of ×2. So that doubles the assault value from 13 to 26. We know he's got around 30 assault value. But then we also have forts at this base as well. So we've got level 2 forts, which means that we get another ×2. So basically we get a ×4 assault value. He'd probably have to double his strength on the island to even have a chance to start reducing the forts. But even then, he wouldn't necessarily win. Now, I'm a little uneasy about transporting more troops into the theater. We could, but the thing that's working against us is the fact that it is ×2 for his troops as well if we attack them, and we have half as much assault value as him. Then you double his defensive value because of the terrain, and we're looking at like similar 1-4 odds. We really need to reinforce heavily if we want to try and overrun him without much loss. The 1st Gloucestershire Battalion I was considering bringing in. Not great experience, but they are British infantry sections, so they're pretty effective units. We can't bring in their heavy stuff, though, so we could really only bring in the infantry units. I don't even think the Bren sections can make it in via air transport. So I'm not sure I want to do that. It also pulls another 36 assault value out of Rangoon. Rangoon is already going to be stripped pretty bare as well. We've got 543 assault value there, but 446 of that, oh god, that's going to be below the minimum garrison requirements. But 446 of that is about to leave with the 18th British Infantry Division in a couple of days. So there's that. I think we need to consider moving some additional reinforcements back to Rangoon just in case, but also to make sure that we don't get hit with garrison penalties. So, I don't know. I'll need to look into that probably off turn. Jack Tank, I do intend to hold Blair. I just don't intend to reinforce. I think Blair is safe for the moment, but I don't plan on trying to counterattack at Blair at the moment. So he's either going to have to keep flying in supplies to keep his troops provisioned or let them slowly die and starve. But I really don't want to send in troops that would be more useful in Burma to Blair because they're just going to get themselves shot up and bloodied. And I don't even think the Gloucestershire battalion would be enough. If his assault value is 30 and he doubles it to 60 on the defense, then we need like 120 assault value on Blair to really assure an easy victory. We could win with a lesser amount, but to ensure an easy victory that doesn't shoot us up, we'd probably need somewhere in the range of 100 to 120 assault value. My math may be way off here, but we're only at like 13 right now, so that basically would require us to bring in the Gloucestershire Battalion and probably the Rangoon base force, which I'm not even sure if that's... No, it's not static. So we'd have to bring in both of these units to get us into the range of where we could win relatively easily. And, you know, sooner or later, he's probably going to land troops on the island anyway and take it. So I don't like the idea of taking almost 70 assault value away from Rangoon just as I'm pulling another 440 out of Rangoon and sending it down to Pegu. I think it's better to just leave him in a little bit of a quagmire. If we see him start to reinforce, I think we'll have time to reinforce ourselves, and we can kind of build a Cold War there. And then maybe he'll just lose interest and let them starve. If we see indication that their supplies are low, then we can obviously take advantage of that opportunity. Meanwhile, Port Blair's Air Force. That was a bad day. It's a really bad day, guys. So the Air Force at Port Blair had 14 aircraft last turn. It now has 6. 4 aircraft are left serviceable, 2 are damaged. The pilots pretty much all gained experience because they were fighting Japanese Zeros. Or I don't know if they were Zeros, but they were Japanese aircraft. If we take a look at the aircraft losses last turn, we will see we lost 8 Buffalo 1s to air-to-air combat over Blair. Now, I don't know why, but when you're doing airdrops of supplies or troops to a base, if you have aircraft set to escort, they will escort, but you won't actually see the combat result. You only see the combat result for bombing. So we lost 8 fighters in air-to-air combat over Port Blair. He sent escorts with the formation. I don't get the sense that he really brought in much additional reinforcements based on that attack was essentially the same as the last attack. It might have been bringing in supplies, I'm not sure. But it does look like we may have shot down 2 of his transport aircraft. Hopefully we damaged many more. What is it, the L3Y2 Tina, is that it, that we shot down 2 of them? So it looks like we got 2 of those via air-to-air. We got 2 of the ANs with flak over Singapore, and then there are just some operational losses down the line here. But that was a bloody fight over Port Blair. I'm glad I did send those fighters there. I'm hoping I forced some of his transports to turn back and maybe made him think that he shouldn't be flying cap or flying additional reinforcements into Blair. I don't want to turn Blair into a quagmire of air combat, though, because I just don't have the aviation support to support it. We've only got 16 aviation support. I could bring a group of Hurricanes in if we think that's a good idea, but I'm not sure I do or not. He actually has apparently 104 fighters at Bangkok now, which is a big increase in the number of fighters he has there. Range of 12. So depending on what aircraft he actually has there, take a look at Japanese aircraft. Let's assume they're A6M20s. If he has Zeros there, he can fly them in with drop tanks, extended range for escorting troop transports. If they are Oscars, KI-43s. They can also make it there. So any of his Army-based fighters can make it there with drop tanks. Again, they get a big efficiency penalty. They'll take a lot of experience, or they'll take a lot of ops losses, and they'll take a lot of fatigue, but they could do it. And he does have 104 fighters based out of Bangkok. So with 104 fighters based out of Bangkok, we see 52 auxiliaries. I imagine a big amount of those auxiliaries are, in fact, the troop transports that he was trying to fly stuff into Blair with. But I just think it's probably a bad idea to heavily reinforce Blair, because if we're going like 20 aircraft versus 100 or versus 80 or something like that, that's just asking for problems. Hey, Southern, you missed an attack on Singapore. Singapore held, but its fort level was reduced to 2. Another attack at Blair, but our reinforcements, the Vipers, made it in on time, so we won that battle handily. Another attack at Palembang, which still has 60 assault value on the defensive here, and he failed to succeed there. He didn't even drop the fort level at all, so that was a good result for us. And so another day, another turn, and that's what the primary results of the turn was. Take a look at bombardment down here. There's 19 supplies left at Kaigan. The troops there are running low on supply. The 102nd Filipino Infantry Division is 150 below its full supply complement. So if he does attack here, it might be enough to hold him off on an individual attack. I'm not sure, but those troops are going to fall soon. That base is probably going to fall in the next couple of days if he attacks. Meanwhile, Bataan, he has not made any move there. We still have 1,920 assault value there. We still have almost 20,000 supplies there. We're doing a good job of hanging on there. I got to imagine that's enough supplies, if he doesn't push us too hard, to get us into mid-April before we even start to have supply challenges or issues. If we pull this all down, yeah, I mean, it's more than double the supplies required. So if he attacks there again, that could change things a little bit, but for the moment, I think Bataan is safe for a while. Meanwhile, in China, you can see here he moved 3 units to the east of Guilin. We do have 1 corps there. The 14th Chinese Corps is here and is holding in this position. It is sitting in WR terrain. WR terrain is ×3, so that actually will act like 600 assault value. Now, if these are divisions, he can certainly overwhelm that. We do have reinforcements on the way with the 6th Chinese Corps, which would be another roughly 200 assault value, 208 assault value, which would bring us up to about 1,200 assault value on the defensive there, depending on how many units he's moving in. There's 1 unit here, there's 3 units here. He could be attacking, I'm not sure. The 6th Chinese Corps is going to arrive in 16 days, but I'm actually going to move it into combat mode. It's moving along good roads. I think they probably will not quite get there this turn. So we'll see. I think they move 15 miles on good roads in combat mode. But if I move them in move mode and he attacks them, they're going to take a big penalty because they'll be in the wrong ops mode. So I'd rather them not get there and then him drive these troops back onto another WR hex for another ×3 defensive value with whatever survives from this corps to then link up with this corps, and then we can stop their march in good terrain, or have us get attacked, get mauled a little bit, but then instantly get large amounts of reinforcements. So that's what I think. Bataan fell in May, I believe, or no, Corregidor fell in May. Bataan fell in April. But a good Japanese player, and I'm not saying XTRG isn't, but he was certainly very inexperienced when we started playing. A good Japanese player should be able to take Bataan much sooner than April and free his troops up. I mean, the key for the Japanese in this game is you got to do better than history. You've got to figure out a way to drive further, faster, and faster than history if you want any chance of winning. He's done that in certain places. Remember, he's taken New Caledonia, he's taken Espiritu Santo, New Hebrides. He's taken these key bases in the South Pacific. So he has reached out and he is about to take Port Moresby. You can see here, I have been flying supply into Moresby, so our troops here are almost all at full supply, which is good. We've been flying it in via transports on the Australian continent to try and up our fighting effectiveness, although I'm not reinforcing failure, so I'm not sending in more actual troops, just supplies to kind of keep the fighting going as long as we can. The fort level is 0, working its way up to 1. Unfortunately, the increase of supplies is allowing the port and the airfield to begin being repaired by our troops, so that's helping him when he eventually takes it, but I don't want to just surrender the port either, so... hopefully his battleships, wherever they went off to, if that's up here near Rabaul, hopefully these guys... It says there's 3 carriers, but there's only 16 auxiliary aircraft, so there's no way that's 3 carriers. Swing south to bombard Moresby again and really wreck the airbase there. Undefended base at Saoyong. Back here? Yeah, it does. That's a good point. Crap. I need to get some reinforcements there, I guess. I don't want to let them just pair-drop troops in. I don't want to pull base forces away, though. I also don't know how many more paratroopers he really has that he can easily drop anywhere. The Japanese did bomb Pearl. How far away are these bases? That's really only 10 hexes? That would suck. Meanwhile, so we do know there's a brigade here for about 200 assault value. We have about 1,000 assault value here, but remember, it's in ×3 defensive terrain, so it's really more like 3,000. So he'd need to bring in large forces to have any chance to flank Sian from here. Now, in the south, he has moved troops into Nanning, 2 units into Nanning. He's also moving at least some of these 5 units here south to Nanning. So I have ordered these troops to begin pulling out of Nanning. They're not going to get out in time. I'm ordering them to move in combat mode just in the event that he attacks me next turn. I'm always sensitive to not getting caught on the roads because I can't get out in one turn anyway marching. If he doesn't attack this turn, I'll switch them all over to move mode next turn, and then they'll be out before he can attack. Meanwhile, he vacated this hex right here, 2 hexes south of Sion, which is also good defensive terrain, WR terrain, ×3 defensive terrain. So we have a good force here, 1,400 assault value. Again, that would be equivalent to 4,200 on the defensive, so a very strong force there, which is going to hang out here about 90 miles south of Sian to make him drive multiple hexes north. I'm not going to pursue. There is one more section of WR terrain, but in the event he does flank me over here, I want to make sure I'm not too far advanced to be able to pull back in time. I am going to bring up some additional reinforcements out of Sian itself, so we're going to pull about 700 to 800 assault value out of Sian, the 42nd Corps, 16th Corps, and 1st Chinese Corps. Some of them are going to move to the southeast, down over here. If we can get another, 300 to 400 assault value and he doesn't reinforce the brigade over here, we may attack to drive him back. If he doesn't, then we'll see what we do there. As far as the central part of China at Chikikang, looks like it's still relatively safe. We're almost to level 4 forts, at which point we're going to pull more troops out of this massive blob here of 4,300 assault value here. They've got WR terrain with level 3 forts, so that's almost like a ×7 defensive buff. So that would be great. At that point, we'll probably pull another 1,300 or so assault value out there and move it south to defend the southern rail lines, or I'm pretty convinced he's going to make another major push down here or up at north near Sian. Sian is a nice place to defend because it's got good, it builds a little bit of its own supply and it has the ability to have good numbers of forts. We're almost to level 4 here, but it's bad because it's in clear terrain, which is just confusing because there's mountains all around it. So really the primary defense of Sian needs to be to the south, to these 2 hexes south of it, and these 2 hexes south of it. So that's really the key to the defense of Sian. That's the Chinese front. I'll worry about sort of changing altitudes and different things on units off camera. Rangoon, meanwhile, by the way, is up to 66,000 supplies. So we've got the majority of one of those convoys is unloaded now. I've ordered Task Force 4 here with a bunch of empty cargo ships to pull back to Colombo. We have another 31,000 supply on cargo ships that are all now docked, so they're all now going to efficiently unload at Rangoon. So we could get up close to 100,000 supplies at Rangoon itself. And that doesn't even count the 15,000 supplies at Pegu, the 5,000 at Melkin, the 12,000 at Mandalay, the 10,000 at Lascaux, and then the 4,000 at Mitiana. So Burma is flush with supply right now. The only problem is once he turns those 104 fighters and whatever bombers he has at Bangkok against us, he's going to very quickly shut this port down. So I really have to get everything I can get in now before he starts those air attacks. We do have a good fighter group here. We've got 71 fighter aircraft here, all modern fighters with the exception of... Actually, no, they are all modern fighters. So that's good for us. We also have some additional 32 Hurricanes and 25 Air Cobras. So we have the ability to bring an additional, 57 aircraft south into Rangoon, which would bring our numbers up to 120 fighter aircraft. And if we really, really want, we could pull 32 Hurricanes out of China and bring those back to Burma as well. So we could theoretically have a force of up to 150 fighters, mostly modern, based out of Rangoon. The P-38s at Burma, we need them at Burma. Is the P-38 that much better than the Hurricane? Because we've got a lot of Hurricanes. Let's pull those guys in. So I'm going to pull the 3 Hurricanes out of the pool to get this group up to full strength. It's going to take 3 days for the maintenance to be done, though. How much supply did that use, by the way? It was a 66,000? Actually, it doesn't look like it made any difference. In terms of P-38s, by the way, so I have, because I had to withdraw some American P-40 units because their time had come, we also have a pretty substantial reserve of P-40s right now. So there are 14 P-38s in the pool. I have enough modern aircraft to swap out this squadron of 9 P-38s, as well as another squadron of P-38s that I think is on the east coast of 20 P-38s. I haven't done it yet because there's 2 of those aircraft that are being repaired, but I could swap 25 P-39s for 20 P-38s. I think that's a good trade, even though they're getting stuck into a reserve unit. I'll have to see if there's any, unrestricted units that currently fly Mohawks or something that maybe it would make more sense to upgrade a Mohawk fighter unit to a P-39 or a P-40 and then use those Mohawks to replace the P-39 or P-38s. There are 25 Mohawks in this group. Actually, this is an unrestricted group, so it might make some sense here to swap out these Mohawks and then we could because I actually have 20 Mohawks in the pool right now. That's not enough to replace either of those units. But then I also have 25 P-39Ds and 38 P-40Es. So we have a very healthy pool right now. Remember, our primary or a large number of our fighters in Rangoon or in Burma are P-40s and P-39s. So we've got 63 aircraft in reserve that we could replace casualties with and sort of help fight a war of attrition. Disband the Mohawks? I was going to swap the Mohawks, but you want me to disband them? Just in case, let's go ahead and save radar homing artillery shells. Yeah, I figured we'd swap them because then we don't have to wait those days. And if we swap them, then we can start using those aircraft in other theaters. So I think swapping makes more sense. We'll give them the Air Cobras, just because it's not as good as the P-40, and it's a little bit further away from the front, so they're not going to probably be in combat instantly. Well, this one requires 25 planes to upgrade. Requires 25 planes to upgrade. Oh, I could do that. Or no. Well, here's the question, though. Why would I want to do that? Don't I want the intent is not to never use this squadron. This is an unrestricted squadron. I would probably deploy them somewhere to like Suva or something like that. And they've got 59 average experience for the pilots, so it's a pretty good squadron. I don't want to just throw it away and not use it. I mean, it obviously will let me upgrade to the P-35, but I don't see the point in neutering a really good squadron. I guess my thought was that it would make more sense to forward deploy them now since they're already in the Pacific. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can use the P-35A. Upgrade them now. Now, it is going to take a while for those Mohawks to reach the pools, so it's not instantly available this first turn. So 4 of them went in there right away. The rest are going to take a few turns to show up. I suppose we could also use this as an opportunity to just send the most experienced pilots into the reserves so we have some decent pilots in reserve since there's only going to be 1 aircraft for this squadron for a while. So we could just release the most experienced pilots in this group into the reserve, a bunch of guys with over 60 experience to sort of fill up our... Wait, these guys are officers, that's why they're not going. Well, they're only going to have 1 aircraft, so there's no real point in preserving guys for training purposes because I don't get any more of these P-25s or whatever they are. So we'll send all the good ones to the pool. So those are some good pilots there. So it'll take at least a day before I have enough Mohawks available to replace some of those P-39s, or P-38s, sorry. So we'll have about 40 Mohawks in the pool following that action, but it could take up to 7 days for them to become available. My intent is to use the first, once we get to 25, to use them on this group, but that's going to be 4 days until these aircraft are repaired. Once we have 20 of these aircraft all ready, then I'll swap them out for 25 Mohawks, and then I will send the 20 P-38s to the pool, and then we'll have 38 P-38s in our reserve pool. At that point, we could look at giving the P-38s to some group in Rangoon or some other group somewhere else in the Pacific. We could even upgrade, I think, the Flying Tigers to them, in theory. They could fly 27 of these guys flying out of Burma. Now, they're a pretty good group. They've got 66 average experience in this group. They've got 2 pilots over 80. They've got another 6 pilots over 70. Everybody, with the exception of like 4 pilots, are over 60. This would be a pretty good group to give the P-38s. The only thing is that they do have to be withdrawn on July 4th, but let's be honest, I think we'll use them aggressively enough so that the majority of the airframes are destroyed by July 4th, and hopefully we wreak some havoc on the Japanese. It will also free up 6 P-40s, or sorry, 6 H-81s to reinforce other... Oh, wait, no, wrong one. To reinforce other units here. So like the... or did I withdraw the other aircraft? Why does the unit OOB not show? They're in Chongqing, right? Yeah, so then I could reinforce the 6 or so aircraft here out to these guys in China. Unless it makes sense to pull some other... I mean, we could also pull the most experienced pilots out of these different groups and then reinforce that group so like everybody's above 70. Pat, I'll worry about the pilot management later. I'm not going to change anything right now. So then we'd have 34 P-38s, and then once we get another 25 aircraft in the reserve pool, then what we could do is we could free up these 9 P-38s somewhere else. Where are they? Over here. So we could have up to, I think, 43 P-38s. We'd then equip the AVG-27 with him, and then we'd have 16 aircraft in reserve to replace casualties. We could... I think we're actually going to be like one Mohawk shy. Unfortunately, I can't use my P-26s on this group because it's restricted. So we'll see. You didn't think you'd ever see a stream of this game, Sunjai? I've been streaming this game pretty consistently for a little bit over a year against XTRG, who's streaming the Japanese side. So we've been going at this for a while, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Bahunt Omi. Bahuntumi 28, whatever it is. Thanks for the follow. Okay. Yeah, Pat, I'd rather not use 25 planes on a restricted squadron. Sonaj, thanks for the follow as well. I think all these guys out here are restricted, right? Yeah. Most of the West Coast groups are restricted, unfortunately. Meanwhile, I see those 3 transports I was sending to Canada for some reason are over here, coming out of the Mediterranean. Where are they? I did see them over here somewhere. I don't even know where they are anymore. I saw them. Whatever. I don't really care. Yeah, so that's kind of the turn, guys. I don't have a lot else going on this turn. I'll probably do some more stuff off map or off camera. Port Blair is obviously important, but we've reinforced that. Let's take a look at our carriers, I guess. How does Java look? When can we expect an invasion after Palembang? I don't know when to expect it. I mean, he could probably launch the invasion at any time. He's already really crippled our Air Force in Java. We did get our Hurricane squadron that we upgraded from Buffaloes to Hurricanes up to 12 Hurricanes, so the squadron is fully ready. They've got some moderately okay pilots, a couple of guys over 50. Most of them are in their 40s. And then we have another squadron of P-40E Warhawks, which is currently trying to get up and running. They've got not as many aircraft. We don't have enough for a full complement there yet, but they've got 6 aircraft ready. 2 will be ready tomorrow, so then we'll have 20 modern fighter aircraft on the island of Java. And then all that's left of my fighter force otherwise than that is 5 Buffaloes here located at Tijilap. So not great. Batavia, meanwhile, is the hub of our defense in Java. They're 57%, so it seems like we're not going to make more progress than 1% per day. I don't imagine we'll ever get to level 4 forts then in that event, but they're at level 3. They also have urban terrain, which is a ×3 defensive value, I believe it is. UI is urban light. Actually, so it's only ×2. ×2 defense plus the 3 forts. That should help. We still have a handful of bombers, but nothing that's going to be able to do anything really against his aircraft. We're trying to pull additional units out of Singapore before it falls. So we've actually moved about a third of the 224 RAF group out. It had about 1,200 load cost. Now it's at 860 after 1 turn of transports. The majority of them are going into Medan via some transports that we brought in from Rangoon. You can see here that the 224 group is at 300 load cost. The 223 RAF group, meanwhile, is about to rail up to Sebang to link up with the rest of its unit up here near Sebang, a little bit more remote. We also have 102 assault value infantry battalion and a 60 infantry regiment and a 60 assault value infantry battalion. We've got the bulk of the 223 group RAF group. When the other unit will arrive, that's the entire RAF headquarter unit. And 84 of the 224 RAF group has already been loaded up and put at Sabang. I was thinking about trying to bring a troop transport south from Colombo to transport those guys via ship, but that seems like a dicey proposition given that he's got, how far is Sabang from Bangkok? It's a range of 16, so it's outside of torpedo range for any of his bombers, I think, at Bangkok. But if he has any torpedo bombers on the Malay Peninsula, which we're not super clear on, it's well within easy range. So I may have to spend a week or so trying to transport the men out of Sabang via troop transports. That was kind of put on hold as we reinforced Port Blair because all of these aircraft over here, or not these guys, where did they go? The patrol aircraft and transports. So all these aircraft here, these 22 aircraft, were flying troops into Port Blair to try and help evacuate those troops. Can we pick up... Can they reach? I don't think they can reach Sabang. Yeah. So our 8 DC-2s can't reach Sabang, so we're going to have to basically do it entirely via Catalinas. But I'm going to start pulling out the 223 group now, just because it's not a very efficient process here. So we're going to pull out the 223 RAF group. 19 range puts them at extended range, so it's going to be a slower process to get them out. So we got the PBY-4 Catalinas here, these PB-4 Catalinas, so that gives us about 10 aircraft there. These Catalina 1s, why can't they pick up troops here? Yeah, so they'll pick up the 223 group as well to start trying to get that headquarters unit out. Which infantry like a G-man? These guys? Yeah, to try and get their experience up. Good call. These guys aren't to 100 yet, so there's no real point in putting them there yet. They need 17 more days to get their prep up to 100. No, Pat, I am not from the... Oh, you're not talking to me. Hello. All right, so we're going to use the PBYs. So that'll be 24 aircraft currently in Rangoon to try and pull troops out there. Meanwhile, these 8 DC-2s, I suppose we could fly supplies into Blair. We have enough right now. Not by much. What B-24s, Southern? We've got like 8 of them. We don't have very many of them yet. Most of them are flying supplies over the mountains to China. Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll fly these guys back to Medan. And then we will try to pick up troops from Singapore. Specifically the 224 group. No, pick up troops. All right. So we'll have 6 more aircraft joining the caravan of troops that are trying to get the 224 group out of Singapore as well. So that should hopefully help a little bit with pulling more of those units out and getting them up to Sabang, when then we can use our Catalinas to try and transport them in. Do any of these Catalina groups, they need reinforcements. We've got 3 in the pools, but it doesn't look like I've got sufficient, I don't know, supply or whatever it is to reinforce these units. Yeah. None of my bombers can transport troops, so that doesn't help. I don't think I have any more. I've got a lone C-47 Skytrain in Karachi. So, yeah. The B-17s have been resting. They got a little bit chewed up. They didn't get a ton shot down, but they've been sort of repairing their mechanical damage. They take a lot of mechanical damage over the course of a couple of days of heavy use. So we're largely just giving them a few days off. Night, Lycogeman. Good to see you again. I guess, Sean, are you still around? You want me to rename these carrier fleets? Oh, wait. Did I already rename them? 3rd and 5th Fleet. There you go. Well, I don't remember doing that. Although what's funny is the British fleet is the 5th fleet. Sean Mack, thanks for the bits. Appreciated. And AG3076, thanks for the follow. Co, you hacked my account? I doubt it, considering you never sent me a save file, so you can have that private file on your end to do I don't know what with. So we're unloading 12,000 fuel via tankers here. We're loading 20,000 fuel on replenishment here. These AOs are going to chill for a little bit. So the carriers are on their way to Melbourne via roundabout. We don't see any Japanese submarines anymore. I also did turn off my patrols on the carriers to try and make them a little bit less visible to him. I wonder, would the ops report show our Buffaloes engaging enemy transports? I'm really curious what happened there. Viking Star, thanks for the follow. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's any intelligence here. One Catalina transporting RM Viper Force to Port Blair was one Catalina transporting Viper Force to Blair, an L3Y2 Tina damaged by flak, transports flying to Port Blair intercepted by number 24 RAF, L3Y2N Tina damaged by flak, Flight Officer Sprawl DM of number 21 Squadron RAF is credited with kill number 2, 8 DC-2s transporting RM Viper Force to Port Blair, 12 PBYs transporting Fanning Island detachment from Fanning Island. 7 Lodestars transporting 224. Doesn't give me any update about what happened with those transports, though. Transports flying 4658 intercepted by RAF group. So these are the guys on Blair. Squadron leader Kinmont credited with kill number 2. Transporting supplies to Morvis speed, Cooming. Pumps having difficulty controlling flooding on the AP Indomitabus. What? Pumps, okay, flooding increases. Repairs completed on the light cruiser Caldon at Colombo. Ship returned to service. Repairs completed on the heavy cruiser Australia at Melbourne. Ship returned to service. Okay. Lei expands airfield to size 3. Lei's in Japanese hands, isn't it? Some of the 2nd Marines devices are upgraded at Vavu. I thought I had upgrades turned off on all my ground units. I mean, not that I care. Those guys are on the front line, so I'm fine with that. Oh, by the way, the Hornet arrived, guys. Okay. I wish it had given me some info about, like, what actually happened in those air battles. Okay, so this squadron arrived. So we've got some Hurricanes at Melbourne now, which is good because we had to withdraw the P-40s that were based there. Also, the Blenheims are now there. B-17s in Australia still trying to get back and ready for combat. You can see this group will be ready in about 3 days. Yep. Heavy cruisers mostly are repaired. I don't know where I would send them off to yet, Southern. We know there's Nels and Bettys or whatever off Nomaya, so that would be hard to do much with, given that he's going to control the Coral Sea with land-based bombers. I also don't really see anything right now that we could intercept at the moment with the heavy cruisers, but definitely something worth considering. Meanwhile, our base force has landed at Raoul Island. It is unloading as we speak. Only some of the troops are ashore after 1 day. So we have some aviation support and 2 engineers and 3 support or 5 support are ashore. We've got another 1,400 troops to come ashore with 973 in equipment and 1,000 supply. I've already begun issuing the orders to build the airfield up to level 1, so we can use this as a shuttle base between New Zealand and the Fiji Islands. We also began landing the base force, the 119th Base Force at Tongatapu. So again, if he lands at Vavu, which is going to be better defended, we have a Marine regiment there. But in the event that he lands at Vavu, we've got a backup base at Tokapangu, or also it'll at least give him some hesitancy, perhaps, before landing a small force at Tongatapu, because we'll have some troops there. So he doesn't land behind the Fiji Island and cut us off. We have 360 more troops and 2,500 equipment still to unload, along with 1,400 supply. We'll build that up to airfield level 1. Vavu, meanwhile, is up to 70% toward airfield level 1. So probably about 6 more days, and then this will be able to be a shuttle between Pago and Suva. So that's good. Oh God, Raoul Island? What do you mean by that, Mexicans? The Betty is a long-range medium bomber that carries torpedoes. It's very effective against Allied shipping. Meanwhile, you can see here Fanning Island. The Fanning Island detachment still has no New Zealand infantry sections and 9 support. Why is it 0 out of 0? Why wouldn't it just not display? Anyway, the rest of the detachment of Fanning Island is now in Palmyra with 5 New Zealand infantry sections, 4 3.7-inch mountain guns, so that's nice, a little bit of artillery, 2 aviation support, now in Palmyra, so that improves the garrison there just slightly. Also gives us a little bit more aviation support to work out of. Still not anywhere near enough the 40 aircraft I have crammed on that base at the moment. We're also sending mine layers to Palmyra in the event that he does want to make a play there. So our orders are to lay mines. They have 300 mines. They'll lay some mines at Palmyra. Does Christmas Island already have some mines? Yeah, Christmas Island already has 400 mines. So Christmas Island is adequately mined. Palmyra, on the other hand, has no defensive mines. So it'll be comparable to Palmyra then. Also sending some mine layers to Penryn Island. Only 40 mines down here, but we're going to try and lay some mines in the various defensive bases here to make his life a little bit more difficult in the event he tries to land on any of these bases. Meanwhile, as we work our way around, if we go up to the U.S. East Coast, we will see that the USS Hornet has arrived with no escort. Don't worry, though. There's no Japanese or German forces we have to worry about there, because Germany doesn't exist in this game, other than the fact that we're forced to withdraw a lot of units all the time. So the Hornet is sitting on the East Coast. We're going to go ahead and send its headquarters to San Diego, I think. And then, well, nah. Don't give me those airs. Can I set it to Panama? All right, so we're going to go to Cristobal in Panama. We're going to go at flank speed. So it's going to be an off-map to off-map movement, which means it should not take any system damage, and it should not take any fuel up. And it should get there much more quickly at 32 knots. So the Hornet has arrived and will blitz to Panama. Meanwhile, in terms of ships coming soon, let's take a look. Some of you were wondering if it wasn't the Atlanta supposed to come with her. The Atlanta does not appear to be coming in the next 5 days. Queen Mary is 3 days. British Commodore is 2 days. The Newcastle is 5 days. Or no, 6 days. Well, what about the Atlanta? When are we going to get her? Atlanta is 35 days away. So still over a month for the Atlanta and the San Diego to both arrive. The Atlanta will arrive in 35 days at Balboa, which is on the Pacific side of the Panama Canal. Upgrade the dive bombers before they sail. Let's take a look. So the dive bombers on the Atlanta are using the SBC-4 Helldivers. Oh, those suck. That's like a biplane dive bomber. Woof. So we probably want to give them the SB-2 Dauntlesses, right? Because we have enough of those to build out the whole squadron. So probably do one squadron with SB-2D Dauntlesses and one with SB-3 Dauntlesses. If the base falls before the units arrive, Southern, and I don't think they're mine layers, I think those are motor launches. I think they spawn at a different base. Sorry, Koavoken. No, the Dauntless is a dive bomber. They carry 1,000-pound bombs, and they were the key to winning the Battle of Midway. The American torpedo bombers are the Devastator. Those things suck ass. I think they only have one recorded instance of a Devastator torpedo ever working, and that was against a non-maneuvering Japanese light carrier. So, Koavoken, so what do you think? One squadron with SB-2s and one with SB-3s? The Avengers we will get later, but not yet. The Avenger is one of the finest torpedo bombers of the whole war, but that comes later. All right, so we just upgraded these guys before they sail. They're immediately in maintenance, but by the time they arrive at base, all those aircraft should be up and running. Ooh, nice. They come in with 70 experience. We get some good pilots on board these. Okay, so we're doing that, and then the other Helldivers. God, why do we get such garbage planes with them? I'm sorry, I mean such great dive bombers. Are they restricted, or can I go with the SB-3s? Also, what's the difference between the SBD-3 and 2? SB-3, SB-2. Well, they look a little different. Slightly different paint scheme. Carry the same bomb load. It looks like the SB-3 is without a couple of center firing machine guns. So the SB-2 has a 50 cal center line and two 30 cals. The SB-3 has two center line 30 cals with two 50 cal center lines with no centerline 30 cals. They both have a rear firing 30 cal. The SB-3 is a dual rear firing 30 cal. The SB-2 has a single rear firing 30 cal. In terms of their other specs, slightly different climb rate, probably due to the weight difference, slightly different maximum altitudes. And actually, interestingly enough, the SB-3 is longer range and better speed. Wow, that's a pretty substantial difference, 25 miles an hour speed difference between just a different variant of the Dauntless. Yeah. Okay. So the Hornets aircraft are now upgraded. It's going to take a couple days to get these guys fully outfitted. They're 6 shy of complement, but that's fine. Meanwhile, the VT-8 group comes in with Devastators. You can see here they don't even have a full complement. They're 1 shy. You can see the Avengers are not available until May of 42, so we're actually not that far before Avenger production begins. But it's going to take a while. We'll draw 1 aircraft from reserve, so we'll have 9 Devastators. We'll see, Jack Tank. So we've got these. The Hornet is arriving, but the rest of our carriers are out near Australia, so we need to link them up so we can get 6 carriers together. But I don't know if it's quite time for a carrier action, or if we should wait for May or June or something. I don't know quite sure yet. We'll have to see. The right opportunity has to arrive. We're not just going to throw them at them to throw them at them. Okay, so we looked at the upcoming ships. We looked at the Sort of big items for the turn. Let's look at SIGINT here, see if we see anything interesting. The Japanese submarine is moving to truck. Second Air Division is located on Japanese transports moving to Kuitan. So that's on the Malay Peninsula. So that's additional air support for his planes based on the Malay Peninsula. So he's planning for an attack on Singapore. That's no surprise. He just attacked their last turn. The 561st Naval Guard Unit is located on transports moving to truck, so he's reinforcing truck. He was sending a regiment. Wasn't he? Was he sending a regiment to truck? Or was that what XTRG... No, maybe that was what Newhauser and I were speculating on. There was a regiment we spotted on transports. I don't remember if it told us where they were moving or not. Okay. So, some intel. Not a ton that I instantly know what to do with. I'll have to take a look and see how that compares with other intel. Weather, thunderstorms east of Australia. That's okay. By the way, how did... we had some ships that were out of fuel, didn't we? Alright, so these guys... trying to make it back to Pearl. They're taking a bunch of systems damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days away. I can't exactly replenish them either. That's bad planning by yours truly. I'm hoping they'll get there. These guys are at Aden with no fuel. That's fine. Task Force 220, no fuel on the way back to San Diego. I thought I ordered a group to rendezvous with them. They're taking system damage unnecessarily. Oh, here they are. So we've got a replenishment group here with 6,000 fuel. We'll move them out one ahead, so they should be there. Remain on station. Is that mission speed? Should get them there. Full refuel. Okay, so 6,000 replenishment should get these guys back up to full fuel, or at least enough to get to San Francisco here without too much more system damage. So there's that. Where's this group? Oh, this is all 220. So this is 140. Where are they? All right, meanwhile, we've got these ships here that are working their way toward the Panama Canal. 7 days away from them. 8 days. 2 days. 1 day. All right, I need to set everybody here to remain on station because I don't want anyone turning around and going back. Okay. All right, so some of them are going to start arriving in Panama in the next couple of days, mostly 1 to 3 days, a couple about a week away. Once they arrive in Panama, we'll have them transit the canal, and then we'll blitz them to Cape Town, and from Cape Town to the west coast of Australia. I don't want to use meat because when a task force, my understanding is when a task force is out of fuel, the meat command doesn't work properly. And I've seen that happen in my game where it does not work correctly. A lot of times the unit will just sit and wait if the unit they're trying to meet is out of fuel. Okay. Meanwhile, if we take a look at our ships that are being repaired, the Prince of Wales, 285 days away. The Gertrude Kellogg, 8 days away. It's a tanker. And then the Battlecruiser Repulse, 58 days away. So less than 2 months away for the Battlecruiser Repulse to be restored to service. If we go ahead and we take a look at ships sunk last turn, we did hear the Indomitable sink, but we also heard something else sink. So hopefully one of his damaged ships from another period of time was sunk. We did lose the Indominus. It was only worth 12 victory points. It was a good transport, but nothing super special. If we take a look at the actual victory point setup right now, it says 9,667 Japanese to 10,871 Allied. That's going to flip soon, but he needs a 3-to-1 advantage to win in 1942 per the rules, so he's still got a ways to go for that. We have 796 political points, which means we do have enough to bring a third of one of the West Coast divisions under our command that is currently sitting in a restricted HQ. The 40th Infantry Division is restricted. It has 3 elements. I divided the division up into 3 separate, I guess, brigades. They're just elements, A, C, and B, or A, B, and C. And we have enough political points to change the headquarters on one of those units out of a restricted West Coast unit to wherever we want them to be. But I don't want to spend those political points yet. They're planning for Palmyra. Just in the event he lands there, then we can immediately launch a counteroffensive to retake it. But I don't want to spend all my political points there quite yet. But yeah, it's interesting that the channel or the stream keeps ticking up. We're up to 62 viewers right now, but it's mostly just me talking over a super old looking game. But I appreciate the support, guys. Also, the stream is. I think we're gonna wrap it up now. Yeah, submarine tender. Oh, submarine tenders can. Well, I don't have any submarine tenders out by Pearl, I don't think. I'd have to look. Nope. No sub tenders out by Pearl. Alas, those subs are all my bots. Yeah, I bought all those bots. All you folks watching, thanks for letting me buy you as bots. We do have one subtender that's almost to Brisbane. Might actually already be there. All right, these guys are at Brisbane. Let's move them back to Sydney. Okay. Do we have a tender in Brisbane? Oh, yeah, we do. So we've got the Peleus, which is in port at Brisbane, so the submarines at this base can refuel their armaments. We have 5 subs currently sitting here, although a bunch of them or one of them is under repair. The Permit also needs to be repaired. It'll take 3 days. Pollock is going to take 1 day. Submarine threat, attach ASW. Huh? There's ASW here. There's two destroyers in this group. Hey B Vargas, thanks for coming out again. Good to see you. You know, one thing that does make me a little nervous, guys, is when I noticed, one last thing before we wrap up. I noticed that the shipping that I ordered to return to Colombo is now taking a wide berth. And I don't remember my shipping doing that. Every other time I've ordered my ships to move west, they've just gone directly west. But now, because of some sort of perceived threat, the route is directly north and then west. Which to me, I don't know if that's because he has troops on Blair and that constitutes a threat, but he has no airfield there. So I'm wondering if we've gained intelligence based on our recon over Bangkok that's telling those carriers that there is actually a threat from land-based aircraft and that you need to divert north to avoid it. If that's the case, that makes me a little worried because that could mean he might be about to bomb Rangoon or something like that, which we've been dumping a ton of supply into. So we'll see. I'll probably take another day or two with the turn before I send it back over. I don't think it's Blair, but it might be Bangkok because the Japanese pairs on Blair don't have any aircraft. I mean, there's some that might be flying supplies in with them, but they don't have anybody based there because they don't own the base. If it's there, that's Beddies and Zeros. Yeah, maybe. I mean, he might sink like 5 or 6 of our ships out that way. I'm not too worried about losing 5 or 6 merchantmen, but I don't know. I've got another 40,000 supply coming, or 50,000 supply coming south that would also be steaming right into that. So I think it's, I don't know. I'm just a little uneasy about that. 30 flak at Rangoon. I think that's decent flak. It's not great, decent. I do have cap at Rangoon. I do have aircraft ordered to cap 50%, 60%, 70, 70, 60. I mean, if he hits me with 100 aircraft, that won't do much good, but He has been doing recon over Rangoon for a while, though. So, like, yes, these units all have detection values, but they've had detection values for a while. That's not new. So we'll have to see. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you all coming out. Thanks to all the bit donors, all to the new subscribers for the support. We'll see how things turn out in our next turn. Until next time, however, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.